The moment Officer Reyes's hand clasped around Cassandra Vega's wrist, the crowd fell silent. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the gathering in Riverside Park. For 3 years, she had been a ghost appearing and vanishing, leaving destruction in her wake. Now she stood exposed before dozens of witnesses, her golden hair catching the morning light. "Cassandra Vega, you are under arrest for fraud, grand larceny, and accessory to murder," Officer Reyes said, his voice steady despite the electricity in the air. Her eyes, a piercing blue that had disarmed countless victims, narrowed. "You have the wrong person," she said, her voice carrying just the right note of indignation to make several onlookers shift uncomfortably. The second officer stepped forward, unclipping handcuffs from his belt. "We have DNA evidence, Miss Vega, and witnesses. It's over." A flash of something rage, perhaps, or fear crossed her face, so quickly that most missed it. But Detective Morris, who had been tracking her for 36 months, saw it clearly from where he stood at the edge of the crowd. It was confirmation that the most elusive criminal he had ever pursued was finally in custody. What no one in the park realized was that the true horror of Cassandra Vega's crimes was still waiting to be discovered. 18 months earlier, "Another drink for the lady," the bartender announced, sliding a martini across the polished mahogany bar. "Compliments of the gentleman at the end." Cassandra glanced down the bar, offering a measured smile to the man in the tailored suit. Victor Harrington, 42, recently divorced, senior partner at Blackridge Capital. Net worth, approximately $4.2 million. She'd done her homework. "I couldn't possibly," she demurred, but her fingers traced the stem of the glass delicately. "Please, I insist," Victor said, moving to the empty stool beside her. "It's not every day I see someone reading Fitzgerald in a bar." Cassandra closed her copy of The Beautiful and Damned with a shy smile that had been practiced to perfection in front of countless mirrors. "It helps me understand people," she said, "how easily they can be swept away by beauty and promises." Victor laughed, charmed by what he perceived as depth beneath her stunning exterior. "I'm Victor," he said, extending his hand. "Elise," she replied, using the third of her 7 carefully constructed identities. "Elise Winters." Later that night, as they walked along the waterfront, Victor found himself sharing details of his divorce, his estranged relationship with his daughter, and most valuably the security protocols at his firm. A gentle touch on his arm, a sympathetic glance, and men like Victor always revealed everything. "I should get home," Cassandra said, checking her watch. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Can I see you again?" Victor asked, unable to hide the eagerness in his voice. "I'd like that," she said, allowing him to input his number into her phone. She hailed a cab, waving as it pulled away. 3 blocks later, she directed the driver to her actual destination, a modest apartment building in a transitional neighborhood. Once inside her sparsely furnished unit, she kicked off the uncomfortable heels and removed the blonde wig, releasing her natural dark hair. The tablet on her coffee table displayed a spreadsheet with Victor's name now added to a list of 12 others, each with notes, personal details, and estimated timeframes. She had already compromised 2 of Blackridge's partners. Victor would be the third. Once she had obtained access to all 4 senior partners' credentials, she could execute the transfer of funds without triggering the firm's security protocols. Her phone buzzed with a message from her accomplice, Marcus. "How did it go?" "Perfect," she typed back. 3 weeks and we'll be ready for Blackridge." "You never cease to amaze me, Cass." She placed the phone down, her expression hardening as she remembered the circumstances that had led her here, circumstances that had taught her that justice was merely a convenience for the powerful. For Cassandra Vega, true justice was taking what had been denied to her, and she was extraordinarily good at taking. 5 years earlier, Cassandra had once believed in the system. The daughter of a nurse and a construction worker who had scrimped and saved to put her through college, she had graduated with honors and landed a coveted position at Meridian Investments. She remembered the day everything changed with painful clarity. She had discovered accounting discrepancies in one of the firm's largest client accounts, evidence of money laundering, that implicated the firm's CFO, Robert Klein. Following protocol, she brought her findings to her supervisor, believing naively that the truth would matter. 3 days later, she was called into a meeting with HR and security. Planted evidence suggested she had been stealing client information. Within an hour, she was escorted from the building. No other financial firm would touch her. Her reputation was ruined, her career destroyed before it had truly begun. When she tried to fight back legally, she discovered Klein's connections extended into the judicial system. The day she lost her appeal was the day Cassandra Vega died, and the woman who emerged was someone entirely new, someone who understood that in a rigged game, you either step away or learn to rig it better. Her first target had been simple: a mid-level executive at Meridian with a gambling problem and access to personnel files. With information obtained from him, she methodically worked her way through a series of increasingly complex cons, building resources and connections. By the time she met Marcus Chen, a brilliant programmer with his own grudge against the financial industry, she had already amassed nearly $1 million and 5 different identities. Together, they elevated her operation to something more sophisticated and far more lucrative. 12 months earlier, "Are you sure this will work?" Marcus asked, his face illuminated by the glow of 3 monitors in their makeshift operations center. "Blackridge's partners transferred $8 million to our Cayman account last quarter," Cassandra replied, paging through photographs on her tablet. "No one suspected a thing. Hargrove Trust will be even easier." Marcus rubbed his eyes. "That's not what I meant. The Donovan job is different. We've never gone after someone this connected before." Cassandra's expression remained impassive, but her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around the tablet. "James Donovan destroyed my parents," she said quietly. Dad's construction company was contracted for Donovan's Westlake development. When Donovan decided to cut corners on materials, Dad threatened to report him. Donovan blacklisted him across the industry, then leveraged his insurance contacts to deny Mom's cancer treatments. They died, broke and broken, while he built another vacation home. Marcus said nothing. He had his own reasons for helping Cassandra. His sister's treatment for addiction had been cut off by an insurance company. Donovan had majority shares in, but even he sometimes worried about the escalating risks they were taking. "We've been careful," Cassandra continued. "We've never been caught on camera, never left DNA, never established patterns. The Donovan job is just one more con." But they both knew that wasn't true. Their previous targets had been about money, and, for Cassandra, honing her skills. Donovan was personal, and personal meant emotional. Emotional meant potential mistakes. "Just promise me you'll stick to the plan," Marcus said finally. "No improvisations this time." Cassandra nodded absently, but her mind was already several steps ahead. The plan would work, but it wouldn't provide what she truly wanted: for James Donovan to know he was being destroyed by the daughter of the people he had crushed beneath his heel. 6 months earlier. "Another glass of champagne, Miss Bennett?" the flight attendant asked as the private jet began its descent toward the Côte d'Azur. "No thank you, David," Cassandra replied with a smile, adjusting her Cartier watch, a gift from James Donovan, who sat across from her, reviewing documents. For 3 months, she had been Claire Bennett, a commercial real estate investor from Chicago, with family money and connections that checked out under scrutiny. Donovan's security team had vetted her thoroughly before he agreed to their first meeting, but Marcus's false digital trail had held up perfectly. "You're quiet," Donovan observed, setting aside his papers. "Just thinking about the Saint-Tropez property," she replied. "Are you sure the environmental survey is accurate? I'd hate for our development to face regulatory issues after investment." Donovan laughed. "Trust me, Claire. I have half the regulatory board in my pocket, but if it makes you feel better, we can review the surveys together tonight." "I'd appreciate that," she said, knowing that the documents he would show her would provide the final evidence they needed. Later, in his villa overlooking the Mediterranean, Cassandra waited until Donovan fell asleep before carefully extracting his phone and using his unconscious thumb to unlock it. Working quickly, she transferred files to an encrypted drive and reinstalled the custom spyware Marcus had developed. As she slipped back into bed, Donovan stirred. "Everything okay?" he mumbled. "Perfect," she whispered. And it was true. In her purse was everything she needed to access his accounts, his contacts, and his secret corporate holdings. Within a month, James Donovan would be ruined, his fortune discreetly siphoned to offshore accounts, his criminal business practices exposed anonymously to federal investigators. What Cassandra didn't know was that the cabin of Donovan's jet had been fitted with a new security system after a previous corporate espionage attempt, cameras too small to detect without specialized equipment. While the footage wasn't monitored in real time, it was backed up to Donovan's private server. And on that server, a facial recognition protocol had flagged a 97% match between Claire Bennett and a woman photographed, leaving Victor Harrington's apartment building 18 months earlier, the night before Blackridge Capital discovered they had been hacked. 1 month earlier, Detective Morris stared at the evidence board in his cramped office, coffee growing cold beside him. For nearly 3 years, he had been tracking a series of sophisticated financial crimes across multiple jurisdictions. The perpetrators were ghosts leaving, no fingerprints, no clear images on security cameras, no pattern that could be easily discerned. But Morris had noticed something others missed: a single thread connecting several victims. In each case, a witness described an unusually attractive woman who had been seen with the victim shortly before the crime. The descriptions varied: blonde, brunette, redhead, sophisticated professional, graduate student, fitness instructor, but certain elements remained consistent. Striking blue eyes, about 5'7", athletic build, and a distinctive way of tilting her head when listening. "You're obsessed, Morris," his partner commented from the doorway. "Financial crimes is sending over another detective to take lead. The captain thinks you're too close to this one." Morris didn't respond, his attention caught by an email that had just arrived, a secure transmission from an anonymous source containing surveillance footage from a private jet with facial recognition matches to 3 separate cases. "Holy shit," he breathed, leaning forward. "It's her." The woman's face was clearly visible as she moved through the cabin of the jet, checking her reflection briefly in a mirror. Despite different hair and makeup, the AI facial recognition confirmed what Morris had suspected. The same woman had been at the center of at least 7 major financial crimes over 3 years. Attached to the email was a name, Cassandra Vega, and an address in New York City. "Cancel that transfer," Morris said, grabbing his jacket. "I know who she is." Present day. The crowd in Riverside Park continued to watch as Cassandra was led toward a waiting police vehicle, her wrists now secured behind her back. Detective Morris followed a few paces behind, his expression unreadable. "You've made a mistake," Cassandra called out to the gathering onlookers, her voice carrying the perfect note of distress. "Please, someone call my lawyer. This is a misunderstanding." Several people pulled out phones, concerned by what appeared to be the unjust arrest of a young woman. This, Morris knew, was how she had evaded capture for so long. Her ability to project vulnerability was perhaps her greatest weapon. But something unexpected happened as they approached the police car. A man stepped forward from the crowd, tall, distinguished, with silver at his temples. James Donovan. "No misunderstanding this time, Cassandra," he said, his voice carrying. "Or should I call you Claire, or Elise, or any of your other aliases?" Cassandra froze, her composure slipping for the first time. "You," she whispered. Morris's hand tightened on her arm. "Keep moving," he said quietly. But Donovan wasn't finished. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize you eventually? The daughter of that self-righteous contractor who tried to ruin me? You have your mother's eyes." The crowd murmured in confusion, but Morris could feel Cassandra's body tense beside him, coiled like a spring. "You remembered," she said, her voice now stripped of pretense. "I make it a point to remember those who cross me," Donovan replied coldly. "Your father should have taken the money and kept his mouth shut. And you should have stayed hidden after your little hacking spree with Blackridge. Coming after me directly? Amateur move." Morris attempted to guide Cassandra toward the car again, but she resisted, her eyes locked on Donovan. "My parents died because of you," she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Your parents died because they were weak, Donovan replied dismissively. Just like you. All that planning, all those elaborate schemes, and here you are caught, while I walk free. Something snapped in Cassandra. With a sudden movement that surprised even Morris, she twisted free from his grip and lunged toward Donovan. But before she could reach him, 2 officers intercepted her, forcing her roughly to the ground as the crowd gasped. Add assaulting an officer to the charges. One of them called out, pressing a knee into her back as she struggled. Morris moved quickly to intervene. Ease up, he ordered, helping Cassandra to her feet once she was securely restrained again. Her cheek was scraped from the pavement, a trickle of blood marring her perfect features. Donovan merely straightened his tie, a satisfied smile on his face. I'll be following this case with interest, Detective, he said to Morris. Make sure she faces every charge possible. As they finally managed to get Cassandra into the back of the police car, Morris noticed her expression had completely transformed. The vulnerability, the practiced charm all gone. What remained was cold calculation. You know he's guilty, she said as he closed the door. Donovan has destroyed hundreds of lives. I have proof. If you have evidence of crimes, we can discuss that downtown, Morris replied professionally. He won't serve a day, Cassandra said, a bitter smile forming. Men like him never do. That's why I had to take matters into my own hands. That's not how justice works, Morris said. No, she agreed, looking out the window at Donovan, who was now speaking smoothly to several officers. That's exactly how it works. For them. In the interrogation room hours later, Cassandra sat silently as Morris laid out the evidence against her. Bank records, surveillance footage, witness testimonies. Computer records recovered from her apartment linking her to over $30 million in financial crimes. We found Marcus Chen in Dubai, Morris said finally. He's agreed to testify against you in exchange for immunity. For the first time, genuine shock registered on Cassandra's face. Marcus wouldn't. He already has, Morris interrupted, sliding a signed statement across the table. Turns out loyalty isn't his strong suit when facing 20 years in federal prison. Cassandra scanned the document, her expression hardening with each paragraph. Not only had Marcus provided details of their operations, but he had also implicated her in a death she had known nothing about, the apparent suicide of Victor Harrington after the Blackridge scandal, which Marcus now claimed had been staged at Cassandra's direction. This is a lie, she said, pushing the paper away. I never— Save it for court, Morris said. With his testimony and the evidence we've gathered, you're looking at life without parole, unless you're willing to give us something better. Cassandra leaned back, mind racing. There was only one card left to play. Donovan, she said finally, I have evidence of everything. Tax evasion, bribes, fraud. I can prove his involvement in at least 3 deaths. Morris studied her for a long moment. Show me. 2 weeks later, Cassandra sat in the visitation room of the Metropolitan Detention Center, across from her court-appointed attorney. The woman's expression was grave as she delivered the news. The DA has declined to pursue charges against Donovan based on your evidence, she said. They claim it was obtained illegally and is therefore inadmissible. What about the offshore accounts? The emails? Cassandra demanded. Donovan's legal team argues they were fabricated as part of your fraud scheme, the attorney replied. Your accomplice's testimony about your history of creating false digital evidence doesn't help your case. Cassandra closed her eyes briefly. And my case? The prosecution is seeking maximum penalties on all counts. With the murder charge— I didn't kill anyone, Cassandra interrupted sharply. I believe you, her attorney said, though her tone suggested professional obligation rather than conviction. But Marcus Chen's testimony is compelling, and they have circumstantial evidence placing you near Harrington's apartment the night he died. The reality of her situation settled over Cassandra like a shroud. The system she had tried to circumvent was now functioning exactly as she had always believed it did, protecting the powerful, punishing those who challenged them. There's one more thing, her attorney added reluctantly. Your parents' old house in Connecticut was raided this morning. Apparently, anonymous information suggested you had stored evidence or proceeds there. Cassandra went very still. I never hid anything there. That house was sold years ago. It was, the attorney confirmed, to a subsidiary of Donovan Enterprises. According to the report, they found nothing related to your case, but the current tenants, a young family with 2 children, are being evicted due to the investigation. It was a final twist of the knife, Donovan, ensuring that even the memory of her family home was tainted. As the attorney gathered her papers to leave, Cassandra spoke again, her voice hollow. You know what the irony is? Everything the very identity I created, every system I bypassed it, was all to prove that justice could be forced to work when it failed naturally. A bitter laugh escaped her. And all I proved was that it never worked to begin with. The attorney had no response to offer. Later that night, alone in her cell, Cassandra methodically tore the sheets from her thin mattress, her movements precise and unhurried. The guards would make their rounds in 20 minutes. By then, it would be done. Her final thought, as she fashioned the sheets into a careful knot, was not of regret for her crimes, but of rage that Donovan would continue his, protected by the very institutions meant to prevent them. Outside her cell, the facility continued its nighttime routine, indifferent to the small acts of justice and injustice contained within its walls. In the end, Cassandra Vega discovered what many before her had learned, that the system breaks those who fight it by its rules, crushes those who defy its rules, and rewards those who manipulate its rules. And in a world structured this way, there are no true victories for people like Heronley, different forms of defeat,